my sunglasses today. I'll leave those up there. Little overcast for sunglasses today. What's up, folks? Wednesday, hump day. What the hell is going on there? Well, I can't check my messages. I heard something go beep, beep, beep in my notifications, but I'm not going to answer it because, oh, this thing's got me on the right side today. Well, maybe not. I don't know. Oh, no. Yeah. Anyway, what's up, folks? And it's another day complete. Here we go. Ten-hour shifts. Gotta love them. Only if you don't mind working 10-hour shifts. I don't mind. I got nothing else better to do with my time. I'm too old to give a shit. Yep, that's right. Hump day, you say? What day is it? It's hump day. That's right. Oh, I'm not going that way, am I? Yeah, I'll go that way, I guess. It's not too bad. Maybe I'll go home now. Let's see here. I lost my signal on 70 yesterday. Maybe I'll try going the long way today. I really don't want to, though. Greasy skin. Of course, I've had that all my life. Oily skin. I guess it's supposed to. Oily skin is a good thing, I guess. You know, it means your skin's healthy. It's producing all the chemicals it's supposed to, or lubrication that it's supposed to. I don't know. I don't have any music today. When my video is on, my music doesn't work because I'm linked through my car on the Wi-Fi or the Bluetooth. So I don't have any music. Then again, that's a good thing because I don't have to worry about fucking YouTube doing their stupid bullshit. They put another highlight up yesterday, YouTube did, when I was talking about unions. It's pretty funny. I think they did like 1 minute and 20 seconds this time. But they got my complete thought instead of just doing, 20 seconds of it. That's a chick looking at my car. I must have a cool car. I do. I got one of the coolest cars ever. Yep. Anyway, they put up, instead of just doing 21 seconds of a highlight of my reel yesterday or of my live feed, they did 1 minute and 21 seconds, which means they got a complete thought in a whole sentence, and it actually turned out pretty good. I never planned these things, they just kind of happen. If I could just get people to participate, a little bit better, get some conversation going, my live feeds might go a little better. I might do longer live feeds eventually, but I can't do like longer ones when I drive home because it only takes me about 30 minutes to get home. So I might have to start going in my man cave downstairs in my basement. Man cave, whatever you want to call it. Some people call it a man cave. I call it a basement or a man cave or something like that. Because I can sit down at my desk. I got a desk downstairs that I've got all my CB radio equipment on, and I can do longer live feeds there. I generally don't like to do more than like an hour because my voice gets tired after a while. Of course, I never had that problem when I was younger. I guess my vocal cords are worn out from screaming and yelling at kids on them. You know, like when I had kids, and then from going to all the concerts that I've gone to in my life, strained my vocal cords quite a bit. And I have to talk a little louder at work too, because the type of work I do, I'm in a shop that's kind of noisy, so in order for people to hear you, you got to raise your voice, you know, just a little bit. And that seems to be like an all-day thing. So, don't hit me, Hyundai. Jesus Christ. Stupid motherfucker. You fucking dumbass. We're gonna slow down. Fucking weirdo. Jeez. People just don't have any common sense driving anymore. This dumb bitch knew I was gonna get over. She decided she was gonna try and cut me off. No, not today, Sally. Anyway, so yeah, if I could get people to participate a little better in my live feeds, I might do, you know, I need to come up with some kind of idea where I've got like a topic to talk about. I really don't like politics, and I really don't like religion. Those two things seem to piss people off quite a bit, and I'm not about pissing people off. I mean, I don't really give a shit either way, but I'm not about pissing people off, and I don't want, I don't know, I'd just rather not deal with it. I have, don't get me wrong. There's a few videos that I've done where I've been rather vocal about those two things, but I try to steer away from those because they're complicated. You know, not everybody has the same opinion about everything, and it, you know, when you express your opinion, you know, people want to get nasty and they want to bitch and whine, and I just would rather stay away from that kind of thing. So politics and religion out the window, unless I'm fired up one day. You know, I used to do a lot of rabbit hole stuff. You know, I was in the rabbit hole during this whole fucking, you know, the big bad virus. 2021 election, 26, you know, January 6th, and, you know, all that bullshit. So I was in a rabbit hole for quite a while. And a rabbit hole is a bad place to be, especially because it's on the internet, of course. You got to kind of pick and choose what you listen to and what you don't, what is real and what's not. That seems to be the biggest question that people, you know, try to get answers to. You know, what's real and what's not. Yeah, dumbass. I'll just pass the woman trying to cut me off back there. But anyway, yeah. So, I mean, you know, there's some people out there that they just, no matter what they see or what they hear, they believe it. You know. I'll say to people that use their left brain more than their right brain, I'll just leave it at that. But, you know, you got to look at things objectively, and you got to think about things, you know, what is it that's believable and what's not. That seems to be the hardest thing for people to grasp the concept of. You know, if you hear something about, you know, if you hear that, I don't know, say for instance, you know, like if somebody, you know, does something against the law, and then, you know, but it's not their fault that they did it that way, or it's not their fault that they did it, you know, like the criminals, for instance. Well, it's not my fault I robbed the store, you know what I mean? And then you get people that feed into that, you know what I mean? And, but that's the kind of thing I'm talking about. You know, these people that believe everything that's said, and they hold true to everything. And I found that in life, whether, you know, with the internet or not, you can only believe about half of what you see, and you can't believe anything that you hear. You know, not without some kind of solid proof. Now, I had a problem a while back where I was getting banned from Facebook a lot. Facebook doesn't like me because I I spew truth on there, you know. And, you know, they used to put all this stuff about these fact checkers, you know, the fact checker for, hi, Angelica, how are you? Good evening from Germany. Hi, Germany. Good to have you in there. So, you know, Facebook would ban me or put me on restriction or put me in jail or whatever for 30 days. And I've already fact-checked everything, you know, because I know how to do research. I'm not stupid, you know. I know how to look at stuff. And Angelica or Raquel. That's a cool name, by the way. So I got a rifle that's an Oracle. Never mind. I don't know. Are you guys, hey, Angelica, are you guys allowed to have firearms in your country, citizens? Just yes or no is fine. And I got 9 people in there right now, so I'm going to take this opportunity to say, if anybody wants a shout out, I'll give you a shout out. Just type anything down at the bottom. Hello, how you doing? You know, anything. Yes, no, maybe. I'll give you a free shout out. I won't worry about it. I'll make you YouTube famous. I don't have a lot of. I've got 500 subscribers. You know, I'm reasonably well known, I guess. I'd like to have more subscribers, so if you get a chance to subscribe, please do, and like my video, like my live feed. Now I'm not getting monetized by any means, so you don't need to worry about me just trying to make money, because that's not what I do here. I just have these little conversations about things that are on my mind, like on my way home from work every day, around the same time, of course, and I talk about a lot of different things. I talk some about my day, and I talk about my life, you know, the things that I've been through, you know, society as a whole, you know, what's going on in the world and why, you know, those kinds of things. The things we think about, the things that intrigue us, the things that make us go, you know what I mean? You know, like the song, the things that make you go, That's kind of where I'm at in life, you know, because I've experienced so many different things throughout my whole life. Now I'm 56 years old. I may not look it. I'm still pretty at 56, but you know, I've been through a lot of different types of situations my whole life. And you know, when I tell about my experiences as relates to what's going on in the world today, it's because a lot of those things that are going on, I've lived, I've done, I've seen. You know, these guys, these old men wear these hats and say, you know, been there, done that. I don't have one, but I need one, because been there, done that. You know what I mean? So I, you know, a lot of the things that I say, for some people, may seem kind of off the wall, but they're real. You know what I mean? And I know it's hard to believe, you know, for some of these people out there, because, you know, they haven't really lived life. You know, they're from that generation of people that, you know, were kind of disposable children, or they had, you know, video games in front of them all the time. They didn't really get out and experience and socialize and, you know, be a part of something. You know, I've been to a lot of different schools because I moved around a lot when I was a kid, and I played sports in school. You know, I got in trouble in school. I experimented with drugs in my younger life. You know, I did wild and crazy things that wild and crazy people do. You know, so a lot of those experiences that I've been throughout my whole life, I can sit back and remember, and it wasn't really that long ago. I mean, like I said, I'm 56, but to me, the things that I've done and the things that I've been through in my life and have experienced were really not that long ago. And, you know, especially if they're an impactful thing, generally people don't forget things that impact their lives, or, you know, have an effect on what they do and the course they take. everything that I've ever done in my life, I've always learned a lesson. First of all, I've always tried to look at things objectively, whether they make sense or not. You know, I try to figure it out in my mind because my mind is working all the time. And I honestly believe, like when I was a kid, because I was in special classes when I was a kid, I honestly believe that I had the attention deficit disorder before any kind of medical experiments were done, or before they even had an idea of what, you know, ADD was all about. I do remember, you know, like when I was in elementary school, you know, these people would come to me like once a week. Somebody would come and get me, and they would take me to the mental health clinic, and it was like a group thing. So we would sit in a group and we talk about, you know, things. And I mean, I was an impressionable kid. I was probably like 10 or 11 at that time. And you know, they would do experiments. Like they would, you know, have us like a project to do, you know, like building card houses, for instance. And they would put on music, and they would see how the music affected my motivation, I guess you could say. So like, you know, if the music was, you know, faster and upbeat, my activity was more intense than normal. But then if they played some slow music, I was kind of like, you know, mellow and just kind of taking my time and doing that thing. But they would get inside your head a lot too, you know what I mean? And I guess that was when kind of the experiment started with the whole ADD and hyperactive disorder and all that bullshit. But that became a crutch later on. And, you know, like in the 80s, probably in the mid to late 80s, ADD kind of became a crutch for people. You know, well, he's got attention deficits. Well, let's put him on medication, you know. So that was another thing that made children disposable as far as I'm concerned. And those are the same children that didn't really experience and learn about life because they were, you know, so messed up on, you know, Ritalin and Klonopin and, you know, all these different things. Adderall, all these different drugs and things. Now, and the only reason I know this is because, you know, I had a stepson who was severe ADD. Actually, he just needed his ass whipped, but we weren't. When I was growing up, when I had already grown up and became a parent, by that time, you know, you couldn't even discipline your child without, you know, everybody looking at you like, oh, that's abuse, you know what I mean? And I think that a lot of what's going on in the world today is from that. These kids don't know what it's like. They don't know what discipline's all about, but they also don't know about what it is to accept responsibility for your actions. You know, being able to fess up and say, okay, yeah, I did that, and then, you know, accept the consequences. But, you know, it's like nowadays you got kids with phones, you know, and they act up, and you want to take their phone, and that's the end of the world. But God, don't spank them, because that's child abuse, or, you know, you're being a tyrant, or, you know, whatever. You're beating your child. That's how people look at that in society today, and it's something that has been, you know, ingrained in the psyche of people, whether it be through, you know, social interactions or the media or whatever. You know, there's a difference between discipline and beatings. Okay, now when I was a kid, I got beatings, and, you know, I wore bruises, you know, and cuts from, you know, switches and things like that. So I was taken from my home when I was young and placed in foster care, and I did some time in foster care, and then I went to a couple of children's homes, you know. So you know, like I said earlier, a lot of these kids don't know what it's like to live outside their home and experience things like that, whereas I did. And you know, my mom, before I was able to go home, had to go through all kinds of counseling and parenting classes and all that, because my mom was abused as a child. So of course, what she knew as discipline as a child was actually abuse, and then she abused me because that's all she knew. You know what I mean? And then, like with me, when I grew up and had my own kids, by that time, I mean, I spanked my children every once in a while, but I did lay bruises on my son one time, and I decided that I would never use a belt again. But that's neither here nor there. But so when you're a child like that, and that's what you know, you tend to carry that over as an adult. And you think back about, what did my parents do when I was a kid that, made me or gave me ideas about how to deal with my own children, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? But like I said, I just talk about different things. Basically, if anybody has any questions, I usually answer them. Like Angelica down there, Oracle, said hello, from Germany. She never did answer my question. I guess she took off. Well, no, it says, well, see, she's the #1 top fan right now. I don't know if she's still there or not. I may lose my signal here in a minute, guys. I may or may not. It just kind of depends on, I guess, the air traffic. I live near an airport, and sometimes when I make this right-hand turn, I lose my signal for just a minute or so. But don't go anywhere. Just bear with me. I know it might be kind of grainy and fuzzy, and you don't really understand what I'm saying, but, if anybody needs me to repeat anything, just let me know, and I'll repeat myself. I don't mind that at all. But anyway, there's just so many things, about society today that, could be handled differently, but unfortunately enough, like I said, a lot of these kids didn't get the learning abilities and things that I did. And I learned a lot about psychology and sociology. As a teenager, I was committed into a rehab center. So I spent 2 years in drug rehab, and I really didn't even need it. It wasn't really drug rehab, so to speak. It was more behavioral, what do they call it? Behavioral. I had it just a second ago. It was up here. Anyway, just, behavioral center, where they taught us about, of course they did teach us about what drugs do and things like that. Now, I didn't get there by accident. Well, I mean, I guess I kind of did. My mom was an alcoholic and a drug addict. I may have said that earlier. I don't remember, but so she automatically assumed that, since she was addicted to drugs and she was addicted to alcohol, that I would be too, because, alcoholism and drug addiction, and I was talking to somebody about this earlier today, are supposed to be a couple of things that are hereditary. I don't think anybody is really born with that, like a gene or something that, that comes on, and when you get a certain age, it says, oh, I got to drink, or anything like that. It's kind of like, it's a choice. You can choose to, indulge in those things, and you choose, how much you do. Now, I know that scientifically your body can become dependent on some of the chemicals and some of the drugs. I mean, that's a given. And I think that's why a lot of times so many people get hooked on pain medication. It's because, they have like a back surgery or a knee surgery or a hip replacement or something, and they give them some really hard drugs. And then, after they start coming off that medication, their body goes, hey, look, I'm still in pain over here. So, they naturally want to go back to, doing the medications or whatever. And I think that's really kind of what happens. I never claimed to be a drug addict or alcoholic, but I was going through a spell in my life where, I'd run away from home and I didn't know where I was going to sleep. I didn't know how I was going to eat or take a shower. And I was I was like skipping around from house to house and couch to couch. And, I would sleep in the woods some nights, and other nights I would sleep in a tent. I would sleep, on, back decks, and just anywhere I could, really. And I got tired of that after a while. I guess I was about 15 when that was going on, because I ended up in rehab. And there's some videos that I've done, before about some of the places that I have been. There was one in particular called Highland Hospital, which is in Asheville, North Carolina. That's where I spent the biggest amount of time in rehab as a teenager. And you were under lock and key, you were under surveillance 24/7. It was almost like jail, but you did get to earn some of your freedoms, like when I first went there, I couldn't go off the floor. I was on the second floor of a building, and like when I first got there, I couldn't go off that floor. And then you had like what they call level 1, where you could start, going to like meals and stuff like that, as long as you were with the counselor or a group of people. And then they had level 2, which you could go to some places by yourself, like down to the front patio to smoke, and then like to school and back. And then level 3, you could pretty much go anywhere you wanted to unsupervised. And then level 4, you could actually even go into town, like go into the city and go to the store and stuff like that. And then you had level 4B, which was kind of like a almost released type thing. And that was basically like your discharge status. And usually after you got 4B, most people were only there for a few weeks after they got their 4B, because these were people that had already proven themselves worthy of being able to go home, and they're supposedly better, and things like that. So and it took me after I learned how to play the game, because that's basically what you had to do as a teenager. You don't really have, as a teenager, you really don't have the ability to process any kind of game plan. I didn't really have a game plan. I was basically, I'd met some new people and I wanted to hang out and, things like that. Oh, shit, was my phone going dead? I don't know, my screen just went dark. But anyway, so it took me a little longer, to get to the point to being able to be discharged. So I was in that treatment center for a year and 2 months and a few days. And before that, I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, at a chemical dependency unit there. Unfortunate enough for me, my mom was a drug and rehab counselor at that time, and the company that she worked for, she had really good insurance, so she was able to send me to some really good treatment centers. But see, the thing is that even though I wasn't really addicted, I was just doing what kids do. Kids experiment and things like that when they're young. And of course, I went through this with my own kids, but I didn't put them anywhere. A lot of the experience that I had about, the psychology and the sociology of things came from learning, in classes and things at this treatment centers, Fortunate enough for me, I had enough smarts and I had seen the path that my mom took, that I was able to kind of turn my life around, even though there wasn't really anything wrong with me. I was able to, start hanging out with better people and, things like that. But I had a little knowledge too about, some of the things that we all go through. But anyway, let me see if I can screenshot this real quick. Oh, yeah, there we go. But anyway, guys, I'm going to take off. I'm usually only on for about a half hour. Angelica, if you're still in there, it's nice to meet you. Stop in anytime. I know I got a couple more people in there watching. If you guys would like to come back. Like I said, I generally am on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. I did miss Monday this week. So I was on yesterday. If you want to go back and review the video from yesterday, my live feed from yesterday, um, I don't always talk about the same things, but I try to have a variety of things. But I think Friday, I may do a video later in the